Have you ever wondered why some people achieve success while others constantly struggle through life? What really determines the quality of your existence? I'm Jim Rohn, and I've spent decades studying this phenomenon, uncovering a truth that's shocking in its simplicity. You are not a victim of circumstances. You are the architect of your own destiny. Stay with me until the end of this video, and I won't just share with you 10 fundamental principles that have transformed thousands of lives. I'll also guide you through a practical test to help you assess where you are right now and what exactly you need to change in your life. This test will serve as your personal compass toward a better future. You know, I wasn't always successful. I remember the days when I was earning minimum wage and had more excuses than dollars. But then, I met my mentor, Mr. Earl Schoaf, who changed everything by asking me a simple question. Jim, why do you think your income is what it is? I started talking about the economy, the market, the company, but he cut me off and said, if we take your 5 closest friends and calculate their average income, it'll be almost identical to yours. That was my moment of clarity, a moment when I realized that my environment was shaping me more than I had ever understood. That principle, along with 9 others I'll share with you today, helped me rise from complete bankruptcy to millionaire status by the age of 31. And these principles haven't lost their power. They're just as relevant today as they were when I first discovered them. You might already have experience and years of life behind you. You've seen ups and downs. You know life isn't always fair. But I'm here to remind you, it's never too late to redesign the blueprint of your life. It's never too late to become the architect of your own destiny. Let's explore these 10 principles together. Principles that have changed thousands of lives, including mine. At the end, we'll take a simple yet powerful test to help you determine exactly where to begin your transformation journey. Ready to build the life of your dreams? Then let's get started. The first principle I want to introduce to you is this. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This isn't just a nice theory. It's a reality I've seen proven over decades of observation. Take a look around you. Who are those 5 people in your life? What's their income level? What's their health like? What's their attitude toward life? Do they constantly complain, or do they look for solutions? Because whether you like it or not, you absorb their values, their beliefs, their habits. I remember a couple who came to one of my seminars in Chicago. They'd been married for 30 years and complained they could never save money. When I asked about their social circle, it turned out all their friends were living paycheck to paycheck. The moment they started spending time with financially literate people, everything changed. Within 3 years, they had built a solid retirement fund, bought investment property, and started traveling. Powerful, isn't it? Take a good look at your environment. Are the people around you lifting you up or pulling you down? That doesn't mean you have to abandon your old friends, but you can expand your circle to include people who are already where you want to be. The second principle, don't blame circumstances. Create them. At my seminars, I often say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. That's the whole secret. You know what I've noticed after decades of working with people? The average person says, oh, these taxes. A leader asks, how can I structure my finances to minimize my tax burden? The average person says, prices are so high. A leader thinks, how can I increase my value in the marketplace so I can earn more? Most people go through life reacting to circumstances, but the architects of their lives create them. They understand they can't control the whole world, but they can control their actions, their responses, and their decisions. I used to be different. I blamed everything, the economy, the weather, the government, the competition. But when I stopped blaming and started taking responsibility, that's when the miracles began happening in my life. Ask yourself, when was the last time I blamed something external for my problems? What would happen if I took 100% responsibility for my life? The third principle, work on yourself more than you work on your job. I always say, to have more, you must become more. At 30, I was earning pathetic money, and my mentor, Mr. Schoaf, was making a fortune. Do you know what the difference was? Not luck, not circumstances. The difference was in who we were. I was undisciplined, inconsistent, and uneducated in many important areas of life. He was the opposite. He advised me, Jim, if you want financial independence, set aside 10% of your income for long-term investments and another 10% to invest in your personal development. I thought, how can I possibly set aside 20% of my already tiny income? But he continued, if you can't invest in your future, you're doomed to spend all your money just to survive. From that day forward, I began investing in books, recordings, seminars, anything that could help me grow. I signed up for public speaking classes even though I was painfully shy. I started studying investing even though I could barely make ends meet. And that changed the trajectory of my life. Ask yourself, how many books have you read this year? How many new skills have you learned? How much have you grown as a person? The fourth principle, don't wait for motivation. Cultivate discipline. I always tell my students, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. See, motivation is like a hot bath. It feels great, but it cools off over time. Discipline, on the other hand, sticks with you even when motivation disappears. When I started my career, I created a reading habit, 30 minutes a day. Not when I felt inspired, not when I had time, every single day, no exceptions. The first 2 weeks were tough. I missed a few days and told myself, maybe this isn't for me. But then I remembered my mentor's lesson. Always finish what you start. Most people quit right before their breakthrough. I forced myself to keep going. After a month, it got easier. After 3 months, it became a habit. And after a year, when people asked me how I became such a compelling speaker, I said, a little bit every day. Ask yourself, what do I do every day that moves me closer to my goals? What one habit could I build that would change everything? The fifth principle, goals turn a vague direction into a planned destination. I always say, if you don't plan your life, someone else will involve you in their plan. Most people drift through life. They wake up at 40, 50, 60 and ask, how did I end up here? They're like a ship without sails, just going with the flow. I have a goal-setting technique I've used for decades. Here it is. Write down all your dreams and desires, big and small. Identify which ones matter most right now. Set specific deadlines. Break each big goal into small steps. Review them daily. When you write your goals down, you program your brain to achieve them. When you review them daily, you keep them in focus, and incredible things start to happen. I remember a woman from Texas, well into her 50s, who attended my seminar. She'd worked as a secretary all her life and thought it was too late to change. I asked her, what have you always dreamed of doing? She said, I always wanted to be a writer. Then start writing. Today, I replied. 3 years later, she published her first book, and 5 years later, she quit her job to write full-time. When was the last time you reviewed your goals? Do you have them in writing? Do you know exactly where you're going? The sixth principle, success is not one giant leap, but a series of small steps. One of my most quoted sayings is, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. This simple yet powerful truth has transformed thousands of lives. I remember an entrepreneur who came up to me after a seminar and said, Jim, I love your ideas, but I don't have time to read. I'm too busy for personal development. I asked him, what if it's just 1 page a day, just one? He looked surprised. 1? That's nothing. I replied, 1 page a day is 365 pages a year. That's more than some books. A year later, he came back to my seminar and proudly told me he had read not just 1, but 14 books. Why? Because starting with just 1 page, he fell in love with reading and kept going. Small actions, compounded over time, lead to extraordinary results. It's like a bank account with compound interest. At first, the change is hardly noticeable, but over time, it multiplies, and the results become staggering. Here's a question for you. What small daily steps can you take today that over time will lead to something great? The seventh principle, keep a journal to track your progress and practice gratitude. I often say, you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. When I was in my early 20s, Mr. Schaaf advised me to start journaling. I thought, why write down my thoughts? Seems like a waste of time. But I trusted him and started writing. First about my goals, then my thoughts, ideas, plans, anything that came to mind. Over time, I noticed something amazing. Journaling helped me find clarity in life's chaos. When you write down your thoughts, they become clearer. When you write down your goals, they become more real. When you track your progress, you stay motivated. I also began writing down 3 things I was grateful for each day. That shifted my focus from what was missing to what I already had. And when you focus on your blessings, they multiply. Many of my students say, "Jim, I'm not a writer. I don't have a talent for words." To that I say, you're not writing for publication. You're writing for clarity, for growth, for yourself. If you started journaling today, what would you write down? What moments of gratitude would you capture? The 8th principle, make health a priority. Take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. I repeat this at every seminar because it's just as important today as it was 50 years ago. When I was younger, I often neglected my health. I was so focused on making money that I ignored my physical well-being. Then I watched successful people lose everything to health problems. One friend, a millionaire, once told me, "Jim, I'd give up all my wealth just to play tennis with my grandkids again." That changed my perspective. I realized that wealth without health is meaningless, and I decided to invest in my physical well-being as seriously as I did in my mind. Later, I developed a simple system I called the health triad: proper nutrition, food that nourishes, not just fills regular physical activity, movement that brings joy, adequate rest, quality sleep and recovery. None of this requires radical change. Start with small steps. Replace soda with water, take a 10-minute walk daily, go to bed 30 minutes earlier. Small changes that bring big results. Ask yourself, how are you taking care of your body? Are your health habits helping or hurting you? The 9th principle, give as much as you receive. The secret to living is giving. I've been saying this for decades because I've seen how this truth transformed my life. In my youth, I was focused on getting more money, more stuff, more recognition, but I never felt truly fulfilled until I started looking for ways to give back. I remember my first experience volunteering at a local school. I held a free entrepreneurship seminar for high school students. Honestly, I thought I was doing them a big favor, but when it ended, I realized I had gained more than I had given, seeing that spark of understanding in their eyes, knowing I made a difference. It filled me with a sense of purpose no amount of money could buy. Over time, I expanded my giving. I didn't just donate part of my income to causes. I gave my time, my attention, my knowledge, everything I could share. And the more I gave, the more came back to me, not always in money, but always in blessings. The happiest people I know are those who have found a way to serve others. That doesn't mean you have to radically change your life. Start small, help a neighbor, mentor a young person, support a cause close to your heart. Think about this. How are you serving others right now? How are you adding value to the world around you? The 10th principle, become a teacher of what you want to learn. When you teach, you learn twice. This wisdom has been confirmed by my own experience. You know, when I first started my speaking career, I was an unsure, shy young man, afraid of public speaking. Ironic, isn't it? But I knew I had to overcome that fear if I wanted to share my ideas with the world. So I started teaching others what I had just learned myself. When I shared success principles I had recently discovered, something amazing happened. They became cemented in my mind. When I answered people's questions, I gained deeper insights. When I helped others apply these truths, I saw new ways to apply them in my own life. I went from student to practitioner to teacher, and it was the role of teacher that brought me the greatest mastery and fulfillment. What can you teach? Maybe you've mastered gardening and can teach your neighbors. Maybe you manage your family budget wisely and can share that with young couples. Or maybe you've gone through tough times and your story could inspire others who are struggling now. Find someone you can teach, and you'll see your own understanding deepen and your skill set grow. Now let's move on to the most important part of our session. Knowledge without action is just information, and information without application has no value. I want you to truly benefit from the time we've spent together. I'm offering you a short test to assess where you currently stand in relation to these principles. Grab a sheet of paper or open your Notes app on your phone. I'll give you a minute for each question, on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 means not applying it at all in my life, and 10 means fully integrated into my life. Rate yourself on each of the 10 principles. Question 1. How consciously do you choose the people you spend the most time with? Write down your score from 1 to 10. Question 2. How much responsibility do you take for the circumstances in your life instead of blaming external factors? Score yourself from 1 to 10. Question 3. How regularly do you invest in your personal growth, reading, learning, developing new skills? Give yourself a rating. Question 4. How disciplined are you in keeping commitments to yourself, even when you don't feel like it? Rate from 1 to 10. Question 5. How clear and specific are your goals and are they written down? Score from 1 to 10. Question 6. How effectively do you break big tasks into a sequence of small, daily steps? Assign a score. Question 7. How regularly do you keep a journal or write down your thoughts and gratitude? Give yourself a rating. Question 8. To what extent do you prioritize your health, nutrition, movement, rest? From 1 to 10. Question 9. How actively do you seek ways to add value to others and serve? Rate yourself. And finally, question 10. How often do you share your knowledge by teaching others what you know? Score yourself from 1 to 10. Now take a look at your results. Which 3 principles received the lowest scores? Write them down. These are your growth zones, the areas that need the most attention. And now, choose only one principle to focus on for the next week. Write down one specific action you will take daily to improve this area of your life. For example, if you chose the principle of personal growth, your action might be, I will read 10 pages of a personal development book each night before bed. Or if you chose the principle of health, maybe, I will take a 15-minute walk every morning before breakfast. Write down your chosen principle and your specific daily action. I'll give you a minute for this. One time someone asked me, Mr. Rohn, what's your most important piece of advice? I answered then, and I'll repeat it now. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. You've just taken the first step toward becoming the architect of your own life. You've identified where you are and decided which direction to go. Remember, success is not an event, it's a process. It's a series of daily decisions that compound over time. As I always tell my audience, becoming a millionaire doesn't take as much discipline as some might think, but it does take more discipline than most people are willing to apply. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into the law of attraction, how to attract success through personal development. Until then, I challenge you. For 1 week, practice the daily action you just wrote down. Share your results in the comments. Which principle did you choose? What action did you take? What changed? And remember my words. Your life only changes when you change, when you stretch, grow, and transform yourself. Be the architect of your life today, right now. The best time to start is always the same. It's the moment you decide to begin.